Goldie Roger was the Pirate King. Monkey D. Luffy will be the Pirate King. Gecko Moria will be, well, nothing because he's Gecko Moria. But did you know that 5 other people actually had the opportunity to become the Pirate King? For various assorted reasons, they all rejected taking on the title or failed at the final hurdle. But with a few tweaks of fate and a dash of personal motivation, this world could have looked very, very different. So here are the 5 people who could have become the Pirate King. Hello and welcome to the Grand Line Review, your source for everything One Piece. My name is Liam, and unfortunately, I am not one of the aforementioned 5. In fact, my parents were, I would say, cruel enough not to even put a single D in my name, so that very much sealed my fate there. And fate similarly has a hand in preventing a further 5 characters from attaining this muchly wanted title. The thing about becoming the Pirate King is that it's actually a lot easier than people think, which is still ridiculously difficult, but not quite as impossible as once thought. As proved by these, again, 5 people who quite literally could have done it pretty much any time. And as for people who have done things, here is Kunal Gupta, Og Kev, and the letter T, all 3 of whom did the amazing thing of subscribing to the Grand Line Review, which will result in consistent injections of One Piece culture being administered directly into your YouTube feed. And if you'd like to be hailed as our next subscriber of the day, then all you need to do is hit that regal red button, and please do say hi in the comments below if you are a new member of the Grand Fleet. Welcome, my liege. Alright, let's get one thing out of the way, which is that becoming the Pirate King is not necessarily what you think it is. It's what we're working towards through the eyes and, I guess, the various other body parts of Luffy, but in reality, it's a made-up title with extraordinarily vague criteria that serves more as a vehicle for the true goal of the series. Whatever that is, because, well, we still don't actually know. But as such, it is very achievable to become the Pirate King so long as we followed these essential criteria. 1. Reach Laugh Tale. 2. Tell people that you did number 1. And 3. Be strong enough to retain your kingly title when people inevitably come to take it from you, generally via punch fighting. That's it. Wealth, fame, power, all of that more or less comes naturally afterwards. But the most important part is to follow our 3-step plan. So person who could have become the Pirate King but didn't, number 1, is Whitebeard. This man was once described by Doflamingo as the person who chose not to take the throne but instead rule in front of it, very much implying that Whitebeard acted as a kind of guard or caretaker of the title. In Lord of the Rings, you would call him a steward. In Star Trek, you would call him the acting captain. And in reality, you would call him completely effing huge because Whitebeard is 666 centimeters tall, also known as the height of the beast. That beast in question probably being a giraffe. But if all it took was height to become the Pirate King, then we'd all be on our hands and knees worshipping San Juan Wolf. And interestingly, it's not necessarily anything Whitebeard could have done himself that would have made him the king. It's that Roger was just essentially willing to throw the title at his finely mustached face. During their final meeting, Roger outright offered to tell Whitebeard how to get to Laugh Tale, meaning that Whitebeard would have gotten to skip all of the road poneglyph shenaniganry and take a casual stroll into the history books as the second person to do the thing and therefore become the undisputed King Daddy Pirate Lord. Really, he would have had everything. Wealth, fame, power, Laugh Tale, and even the secret knowledges of the world's rather scandalous history. As it is, Whitebeard was informed of the secret behind the Will of D, a factor which certainly played into his fostering of Ace and appreciation for the rather curt communication skills of Luffy. Because when the two met for the first, and I guess only time, at Marineford, the conversation went a little something like this. "What's your name, little boy?" "F you, old man. Don't get in my way." But there was a grand total of like 0 things stopping Whitebeard from becoming that there Pirate King. The Marines wouldn't have risked war with an emperor away from home territory. The other emperors were either incompetent or drunk, and so Whitebeard really is the man who could have had everything. But he rejected the throne because in his heart he already had everything he needed. Whitebeard's journey isn't so much a tale of One Piece as it is a story of Sun Piece. Whitebeard's true dream was always to have a family, and his rise to power is actually quite similar to Charlotte Katakuri in that regard. Whitebeard became the strongest man in the world to protect his family. What Katakuri is to siblings, Whitebeard was to children. And so long as he has his bird son, his rock son, and his pig son, then really what more does he need? Well, his fire son and his chef lookalike son would probably be appreciated, but look, what can you do? We can move on, that's what we can do. Because our next prime to be Pirate King dude guy is Silver's Ray Lee, someone who actually did become a king in his own way with the whole Dark King epithet. And in terms of closest to becoming the next Pirate King, Ray Lee was arguably even closer than Whitebeard. I mean, this dude fought an admiral wearing thongs, so really there's nothing he couldn't do. Had he so chosen, Ray Lee could have easily inherited the title of his former captain. He knew where Laugh Tale was, he possessed possessed world-class power, easily equitable to the majority of the emperors at the time, I stress at the time, and very, very importantly, he had the right name recognition. Because just imagine Rayleigh walking into the job interview for Pirate King. After a rather vigorous handshake and an exchanging of pleasantries about the weather or something, the interviewer then peruses the Silver's CV and notices that one of Rayleigh's references is the former Pirate King himself, Goldie Roger. And at that point, you would surely just hire him right then and there. Under the right circumstances, he also could have inherited the entirety of the Roger Pirates as well. Vice captains taking over crews is not at all unheard of in One Piece, such as Jinbei taking over the Sun Pirates after the death of Fisher Tiger, and Aladdin taking over after Jinbei was wooed with the seductive charms of a boy with a straw hat. Of course, never would have happened. Much like Whitebeard, Rayleigh and the rest of the Roger Pirates had no need or want of the Pirate King title or any sense of global prominence whatsoever. They were content understanding their role in history, retreating to the shadows and in some cases retreating inside of their whales, just waiting patiently for the true king to inherit the throne. One way to put it is that while Whitebeard was standing in front of the throne as its noble mustached guard, Rayleigh and his strangely crenellating beard was lurking in the shadows, working their way towards making sure that chosen person found their way onto the right path. Which is noble and nice and stuff, but there are certainly some more, how shall we say, twisted options for Pirate King. And next up is Big Mom and Kaido, who I will specifically address as a tag team of potential pirate royalty. Because if the Pokemon trading card game can print like 3 Pokemon, put them on the same card and call them a single thing, then so can I. I want to make this very, very clear. Neither one of them could have become the Pirate King on their own at any stage. But together, they could have taken it like that. 2 emperors joining forces would have created the single greatest concentration of power that this world has ever seen. The ex-Roger Pirates would not have had the military might to stop them, our throne protector Whitebeard wouldn't have had the physical might to deal with both of them, and the Marines, well, what Marines? Because they would have evaporated like semen outside on a hot summer's day. And I know that imagery is it's questionably vivid, but it's completely true. The greatest mistake that Big Mom and Kaido made was wasting 2 whole decades not teaming up, and they chose to do so finally at the worst possible time, right when someone emerged who was actually capable of stopping them. If at any stage during those 20 years they'd gotten together, put their differences aside, probably had a little bit of a bang, if they had done all of that at any given point other than right here and now, then they would probably be ruling the world right here and now. Because between them, they had more or less everything they needed. 2 road poneglyphs right off the bat, a potential mechanism of reading them through pudding, the entire ridiculously important nation of Wano, and generally unparalleled global influence. They would have found the other 2 road poneglyphs eventually, if only because, well, nobody would have been able to stop them. And you know, this really is a good lesson in working together. Big Mom and Kaido became so arrogant about their own individual power that they just assumed that they'd naturally be able to ascend to the throne based on that alone. In turn, also commencing a bitter rivalry that did nothing but hinder both of them. And because they waited so long, a bunch of rowdy teenagers had since gotten together, taken a dump on the lawns of these emperors, and sent them packing to the One Piece villain retirement home. Taking a trip down to Crimson Town right now, the next person who could have become the Pirate King is Shanks. And you might be saying, hey, Mr. Internet Man, you just said that the previous emperors could not have ever become the Pirate King on their own. So why is this emperor any different? And the answer to that, as well as most of life's questions, is nepotism. Shanks was fortunate enough to be a Roger Pirate, and even though he did not set foot on Laugh Tale, he almost certainly knows where it is, because he was on board when all 4 road poneglyphs were collected and translated. And even if he didn't know, all he would have had to do is go ask Rayleigh and say, hey, give me the address, and Rayleigh would have been like, sure, because why not? Like Whitebeard and Rayleigh before him, Shanks is a man essentially blessed with the cheat codes to enable Pirate King mode in the game of fictional comic life. There's even an interesting argument to be made that he may have visited Laugh Tale at some point, either on his own or with the rest of the Red Hair Pirates, or with some of the Red Hair Pirates, maybe not all of them, but some, and just kept quiet about it because you don't want to make a fuss and ruin all of the prophecies and such. As a child, he did say that eventually he'd make his own way there, and clearly there is something on Laugh Tale that is extremely relevant to Shanks, given that he cried when Roger told him about the thing from the place. And I apologize for the vague language, but sometimes that's just One Piece. Roger found the thing at the place, told Shanks about the thing at the place, and Shanks got sad, and that's literally all we know. But whether he's actually set foot on the island or not is fairly irrelevant for this discussion, because the fact is that he definitely could have if he so chose to do so, which in the eyes of the world, or at least the various inky headlines of Big News Morgans, would have made Shanks the next Pirate Pirate King. Now at this stage you might be asking yourself, who could be left? Because we've now covered all of the original 4 emperors as well as Rayleigh, so who else could have possibly become the next Pirate King? Well, there is a surprisingly canonical answer to that is going to rock your socks off if you're wearing socks, and if not, I would prepare to protect your feet. But before examining our final king, we have one honorable mention, which is the biological seed of former Pirate King, Portghasti Ace. Someone who I only add because even though his life was cut tragically short, and also cut in a very circular manner within his chest, Ace had a decent claim to the throne. The pedigree definitely helps. Being the son of Roger makes Ace quite a natural inheritor of his father's fatherness. He had the backing of Whitebeard, whose goals were suspected to be geared towards making Ace the next Pirate King. I say suspected because it gets thrown around a lot as accepted fact that this was Whitebeard's goal, but it was actually just Sengoku's assumption. And I think it's a pretty solid assumption, but in the end, Ace was a highly flawed candidate. Forgetting all of the logistics of poneglyphs and stuff, the last thing he would have wanted would be to follow in his father's footsteps. But the final character who could have become the Pirate King is actually someone who was very close to Ace's heart. And that someone is Sakuzuki. Get it? Because close to the heart because of the fist through the chest. That's the joke. But I am 100% serious here. Of every character we've mentioned so far, Sakuzuki is the only one who has the backing of Oda himself. This comes from an interview conducted in 2014 when Oda was discussing what it takes to make a good protagonist. And one thing the author extraordinaire cited was to not make them too strong. It's important that we see them struggle, grow, and evolve so that we can empathize with them because we ourselves are weak little humanlings. I mean, look, Oda didn't say that last part specifically. That's more of my own personal inference. But here is where it gets interesting. That's right, like 10 minutes into the video, this is the interesting part. To emphasize this point, Oda chose of all people Sakuzuki. And he said, for example, if Sakuzuki became the protagonist, he would be so strong that he would put an end to One Piece within a single year. And I really don't know how much clearer we can be there. If Sakuzuki, against all odds and against established characterization, wanted to become the Pirate King, then he could get it done. We don't even need to have the boring logistical discussion about poneglyphs and military might or anything, because Oda has said that it would just happen. Pirate King Sakuzuki. What an awfully terrifying reality. But to cleanse your mind brain, here is another video. It's good, like most of them I hope, and I look forward to seeing you there.